After 4 years of marriage with Wintan, I finally discovered that he was actually a snake man, so I kicked him out of the room and mocked him. "You're not even a normal person, slippery and slimy. It's truly disgusting to look at." Just then, dense lines of text suddenly appeared before my eyes. "His baby, stop taking those supplements. Bullying him like this will be the death of you sooner or later." The second male lead is a massive yandere, sweet female supporting character. You don't want to be dragged to the Arctic to pull weeds, do you? That's not all. Once he fully descends into darkness, he'll lock you in his study. Whips, candles, chains, the whole set. Even if your lips split, he won't let you go. I froze in terror as the barrage of comments continued non-stop. Warning: the second male lead's darkness meter is at 99. One more word from you, and it might max out. I swallowed the curse I was about to hurl at him and hesitated before saying, "Actually, snakes are kind of cute too." Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. When I saw the first few bullet comments, I didn't really believe them. I've been married to Wintan for 4 years, and he's always been that cold, indifferent, and seemingly desireless deadpan. How could he possibly be so perverted? Rarely finding an excuse to attack him, I couldn't help but press my advantage. "Wintan, every time I share the bed with you, I always notice a strange smell that keeps me tossing and turning all night. Today I finally realized that this fishy, snake-like stench is coming from you." Wintan remained silent, only the hand beneath his sleeve gradually clenched into a fist, the veins on his forehead faintly visible. The female supporting character is so bold. She really knows how to make personal attacks. No wonder the second male lead imprisoned her. Dear female supporting character, please stop hurting the second male lead. Okay, he's pitiful enough, married to you for 2 years without daring to touch you, and constantly humiliated by you. The second male lead likes you so much, he was overjoyed when he married you. But how painful it has been since your marriage. When he completely turns dark, you'll be crying your eyes out. Dear, among so many bullet comments, I keenly caught the key information. Wintan likes me. How could it be? I've known for a long time that the world I live in is a novel. Wintan is the devoted second male lead, and I'm the villainous female supporting character. The grand finale of this book is the male and female leads living happily ever after. To ensure I wouldn't interfere with their relationship again, Wintan sent a betrothal letter to the Win family. Having framed the female lead and ruined her reputation, my family was struggling to find a way to marry me off. Seeing this opportunity, the Win family and Wintan immediately reached an agreement, and just like that, I became the Prime Minister's wife. Wintan doesn't like me. He hasn't touched me once in the 2 years we've been married. I despise him too, opposing him at every turn and doing everything I can to make him miserable. Just as I was feeling suspicious, the barrage of comments started scrolling again. Just a heads up, the male lead's darkness level is at 99. One more word from you, and it might max out. Great. The study play is about to begin. We're saved. Looking at Wintan's gloomy expression, I swallowed the curse words on my tongue and stiffly changed my tone. Actually, snakes are quite cute too. Wintan still showed no expression, giving me a brief glance before turning away with the bedding in his arms. "I'll sleep in the study tonight, so I won't be in your way." Hey, the second male lead is sulking again, off to the study to play with the female supporting character's undergarments. The female lead has no idea that every time the male second lead is bullied by her, he secretly takes one of her undergarments. No one can count how many have been worn out by now, not just Xiao-Yi. Even the things in the study made this seasoned writer blush. There was a study that Wintan never allowed anyone else to enter. He said it contained only official documents, so I lost all interest and never went there. Seeing this comment flash by, I suddenly had an idea and followed Wintan to the study. In the dead of night, I pierced the window paper and glimpsed the full view of the study. The study walls were covered with portraits of me, and the desk was piled with my undergarments. The ever-elegant and composed Wintan buried his face in my undergarments, his fingers lightly brushing over the portrait of my face, a cold smile curling at the corners of his lips. "Yen Yen, tell me, what should I do with you?" He pulled out a gleaming dagger, his eyes filled with a sinister cruelty. I truly want to carve my name into every inch of your body, so everyone will know you belong to me. As he spoke, he smirked, lowering his head to press one scorching kiss after another onto my undergarments. Is this still the same aloof and celestial-like prime minister who was known to keep his distance from women? I couldn't bear to watch any longer, turning my head away with a flushed face. Yet his intermittent murmurs still reached my ears, slightly hoarse, entangled and ambiguously moaning, yen yen. The supporting female character actually saw it. Ah, male lead number 2, where will you hide your face now? Upstairs commenter. Seeing it doesn't matter anyway, according to the extra storyline. The supporting female character will be locked in the study tomorrow. Tomorrow is a crucial turning point under the supporting female character's provocation. The male lead will completely turn dark. See that thick, long iron chain? Tomorrow it'll be wrapped around the supporting female character's wrist. When Tan's actions dispelled all my doubts about the barrage comments, to ensure my own safety, I decided to be more cautious with my words and actions from then on, avoiding Tan whenever possible. Thanks to my deliberate avoidance, we didn't cross paths the entire next day, just as I breathed a sigh of relief and prepared to take a bath. I unexpectedly ran into a completely naked Tan in the bathroom. Tan propped up his upper body, revealing a broad expanse of cold, pale chest. The remaining droplets of water slid slowly down his slender neck, fell into his collarbone, and trickled over his lean, muscular chest, faintly revealing the sexy and taut lines of his waist and abdomen. Further down, a serpent's tail covered in icy scales was submerged in the water. Previously, whenever Tan was in front of me, he was always impeccably dressed. Only today did I realize how alluring his physique actually is. Recalling what he did last night with such a body, I suddenly felt my face flush hot, and my nose grew warm as if a nosebleed was coming. I hurriedly covered my nose and turned to leave. Why is the supporting female character covering her nose? Does the second male lead really smell? But no, the book says he carries a light woody fragrance, not anything fishy. Did you run away in such a panic because you found the male lead's snake tail disgusting? TSK TSK TSK, baby is so impressive. Such a simple action can push the already sensitive male lead to the brink of collapse. Over there, Tan's voice was cold and indifferent. Yen, why are you running so fast? Was it my scent that made you sick? Or was it my snake tail that made you want to vomit? I guarantee, no matter which option the female supporting character chooses, the second male lead will make her cry out loud. Of course, if she tries to run away, the punishment might be even worse. Friendly reminder, blackening level at 99.5. Darling female supporting character, your top priority is to lower his blackening value first. Trust me, as long as you coax him a little, you can reel him in like a hooked fish. I felt like I had grabbed a lifeline, wiped the blood from my nose, and turned around. I don't think you're disgusting, and I don't feel like vomiting. I left in a hurry because I was afraid of disturbing your bath. If you don't mind, then, shall we bathe together? What is the supporting female character up to? It seems like she's playing some high-level game. The blackening value of the male lead is decreasing, now only at 99. I steeled myself and walked over to him, to bathe. I had already removed my undergarments beforehand, leaving only a thin layer of sleepwear clinging to my skin beneath the outer robe. Tan stared at me in shock, gritting my teeth. I stepped directly into the bathtub. Amidst the swirling steam, I sat on Tan's lap, burying my head in the crook of his neck and taking a deep breath. Husband, you smell so good. After saying this, I kept a close eye on the changes in the corruption value. The mist was too thick for me to see Tan's expression clearly, but I could feel his body stiffen intensely. What's going on? The corruption value has dropped to just 95. A Yandere who doesn't fully corrupt is better off not corrupting at all. Have you forgotten? He dragged the supporting female character into the study, relentlessly tormenting her with hatred until she was left barely alive, forced to end her life by bashing her head. And he followed by poisoning himself in a twisted act of devotion. Sweet supporting character, Just try to soothe him well, and he'll be your loyal dog. Fail, and you'll become his. When Tan closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, his gaze had cleared completely. Wen Yen, have you thought of some new way to deal with me again? I looked at him nervously, carefully wrapping my arms around his neck, my tone softening a little. I was wrong about what happened before. Don't hold it against me. Okay. When Tan closed his eyes, appearing unmoved, bullet screen prompt, darkening value 90, instantly motivated, I swayed my hips slightly. Can you not be angry? When Tan ignored me, but his serpent tail rubbed against me, the icy sensation provoking every inch of my skin. I don't dislike your serpent tail either. I think it's quite cute. As I spoke, I reached out to touch the tip of his tail. The supporting female character is too reckless. You can't just casually touch the tip of a snake's tail. Sure enough, his eyes snapped open instantly, crimson in color, his serpentine tail coiling tightly around me. Wen Yen, what exactly are you trying to do? I don't even know what I want to do. I just don't want to be locked in the study by him. He's the current prime minister, controlling the court and holding immense power. If it really came to a confrontation, 10 of me couldn't take him on. Isn't the goal to reduce the darkening value? Then I'll just have to coax him properly. Gritting my teeth, I grabbed the back of his head and kissed him clumsily. When Tan's breathing suddenly halted, his serpent tail growing scalding hot, he shed his usual upright gentlemanly demeanor, pressing down on my right hand as he warned me in a low voice with reddened eyes. Wen Yen, now that you know I'm a snake, do you also know that snakes have sensitive periods? I'm currently in one of those periods, so I advise you to leave quickly, or you won't be able to handle what's coming. Dear supporting female lead, don't leave. He's just putting up a tough front. If you leave now, he'll surely wallow in self-pity again, convinced you've abandoned him. Blackening value rapidly decreasing. Keep up the good work, dear. I clasped his hand in return, intertwining our fingers. I know. So isn't that why I came to you myself? Suddenly, my waist tightened, and water splashed wildly around us, when Tan turned his head aside, putting distance between us, his voice hoarse as he said, Wen Yen, stop fooling around. I'm not joking with you. Oh, is that what you say? But your serpent tail is coiled so tightly. Does that really mean you want them to leave? Damn Yandra, stop dawdling, hurry up. Seeing that I hadn't left, his gaze gradually grew deeper and sharper, exuding an overwhelming sense of danger as he slowly closed in on me. He leaned in close to my ear, his voice hoarse and icy. Yen Yen, I gave you a chance. It's you who chose not to leave. Before the words even fully landed, his kiss came crashing down, fierce and brutal, leaving my tongue tingling with pain. Disordered breaths brushed against the side of my neck as he embraced me from behind, his jade-like white scales shimmering with a honeyed hue, even submerged in warm water. When Tan's body remained icy cold, the water in the tub was too hot, while his body was too cold. The alternating sensations made me tilt my head back in discomfort, my hands gripping his neck tightly. I didn't even have the energy to glance at the barrage of comments anymore, catching only the key words: darkness level 85, darkness level 80, darkness level 75. Just as I was secretly rejoicing, something suddenly emerged from the parting scales on my lower abdomen. When I finally saw what it was, my body froze uncontrollably, and my hand slipped from his neck. Yen Yen, Wen Tan seemed to be calling my name, but I was still in shock and couldn't respond. Instinctively, I pushed him slightly, creating some distance between us. After a brief standoff, my body suddenly dropped as the person holding me abruptly let go. With a splash, Wen Tan stepped out of the bathtub, his long legs striding forward as he rose with tightly pressed lips. I stared at him in shock, but his expression was grim, not sparing me even a glance. He casually grabbed a coat from the rack and fled into the snowstorm, almost as if in panic. So this is why the female lead suddenly changed her attitude and started being nice to the second male lead. She found a new way to humiliate him. How cruel. First, she pretends to be kind to him, only to openly show her disdain when he's most vulnerable. How could our insecure, brooding second male lead handle that? First giving a sweet date, then slapping him in the face. The female lead is still so vicious to the second male lead. The second male lead's darkening value skyrocketed. It was just over 60 earlier, now it's surged to 95. I leaned over the edge of the bathtub, on the verge of tears. It's not that I dislike him, I just didn't realize there was such a big difference in anatomy between snakes and humans. Even the numbers are different. It's already late at night. And I suppose Wintan is currently in a fit of anger and doesn't want to see me. After some thought, I decided to explain everything to him clearly tomorrow. Early the next morning, I went to find Wintan, unexpectedly. The emperor and his favorite concubine had left the palace for an outing and happened to be staying at the prime minister's residence these few days. Emperor Gu Yunshin and imperial consort Song Li are the male and female protagonists in this world. The man I once loved desperately was none other than Gu Yunshin. He was sitting in the front hall. And upon seeing me, he nodded and smiled. Yen Yen, long time no see. In my youth, I was once taken into the palace by the Empress Dowager to stay for a while. Gu Yunshin was my childhood playmate. You could say we grew up together. At that time, the late emperor was very fond of me and verbally arranged a marriage between me and Gu Yunshin. I always thought that marrying Gu Yunshin, having children, and spending our lives together would be something that would naturally come to pass later. When war broke out in the north, the late emperor sent Gu Yunshin to quell the rebellion in the northern deserts. Before leaving, he rode on a tall horse, leaned down to pat my head, and smiled to reassure me. He said that when he returned, he would formally propose to the Wen family with the traditional betrothal gifts. I knelt before the gods and prayed fervently for his safety, waiting for him for 3 long years. 3 years later, he returned, bringing Song Li with him. He said Song Li was different from women like me, who were confined to the inner chambers. She could wield spears and swords, gallop across battlefields, and had even saved his life in war. He was uncontrollably drawn to Song Li. Just as I was uncontrollably jealous of her, the male and female leads were destined to be together. In the end, he married Song Li, and I married Wintan. One pair is a match made in heaven, the other is a couple bound by pure hatred. Yen Yen. Does seeing me leave you dazed for so long? Gu Yunshin called my name. I snapped out of my reverie, stood before him, and performed a respectful bow. Greetings, Your Majesty. However, Your Majesty's form of address might be somewhat improper. You should call me Madam One. Wintan, who had been expressionless all along, gave me a faint glance at this moment, the corners of his lips seemingly curling into a very slight arc. Just one sentence from the supporting female character can hook you into secret delight. Male lead number 2. Have some dignity. However, some in the barrage held opposing views. Nonsense. Male lead number 2 was clearly happy because he saw the female lead. When the second male lead was still a baby snake, the female lead took care of him for a while. He transformed into human form specifically to find her. She is the eternal white moonlight in his heart, and for her happiness, he willingly chooses to let go and settle. What does the supporting female character even matter? The second male lead's feelings for the supporting female character stem from hatred turning into love, while his love for the female lead is pure. Supporters of the supporting female character, stop getting carried away. Okay, after being reminded by the barrage comments, I turned my head to look at Wintan. He still didn't look at me, his gaze fixed on empty space, lost in who knows what thoughts. Madam One, Gu Yunshin chuckled softly and shook his head. Between you and me, is there still a need for such formality? I remember how much you loved dragging me to see the lanterns in the streets when you were young. When the Lantern Festival comes, shall I take you to see them again? After Song Li appeared, he never took me to see the lanterns again, and now, in front of Song Li, he dares to say such things. I couldn't help but glance at Song Li across from me. Her expression was calm, almost indifferent, as she lowered her head to fiddle with her own armor, seemingly unconcerned. The male lead is trying to curry favor with the female supporting character's impulsive nature. She'd probably agree right away, wouldn't she? The male lead must have had a fight with the female lead and is deliberately using her to make the female lead jealous. Dear supporting character, don't force yourself to take supplements, just be yourself. Don't become a catalyst for someone else's love story. I ignored Gu Yunshin and instead turned to look at Wen-tan beside me, gently taking his hand. Thank you for your kindness, Your Majesty, but now that I have a husband, he will naturally take me to see the lanterns. There's no need to trouble Your Majesty. As I spoke, I moved closer to Wen-tan and leaned lightly against him. His expression remained impassive, but his body was honest, subtly offering his shoulder while his cold fingers interlaced with mine. My wife. No need for His Majesty to concern himself. Gu Yunshin didn't get angry, merely raising an eyebrow as his gaze swept between me and Wen-tan, thick with amusement. That evening, Wen-tan hosted a banquet at the Prime Minister's residence to entertain the Emperor and his consort. I heard the cooks in the kitchen grumbling, saying that eunuchs had come in to inspect each dish repeatedly, and then messed around behind their backs. No one knew what they were up to throughout the banquet. The atmosphere between Gu Yunshin and Song Li was quite peculiar. I pretended not to notice and just kept my head down, focusing on eating. Midway through the feast, I suddenly felt unbearably stifled and wanted to step outside for some fresh air. Just as I took a few deep breaths in the bamboo grove of the backyard, unhurried footsteps sounded behind me. I turned my head and saw that the person approaching was none other than Gu Yunshin. He walked up to me and stood still, looking down at me. Yan left the banquet midway. Is there something you wish to say to me in private? I couldn't help but freeze in surprise. Just as I was about to shake my head, I saw him take a step closer to me and ask, I know you've been married for 2 years, yet you and Wen-tan have grown weary of each other, never sharing a marital bond. I am well aware that your heart still holds a place for me. Yan, would you like to enter the palace and stay by my side? I thought there must be something wrong with my ears. Did you just say, you want me to enter the palace? I asked him in confusion. He nodded. Indeed. Wasn't marrying me all you ever wished for before? However, given your current marital status, entering the palace directly would be inappropriate. I've thought it over. We'll arrange a new identity for you. Once you're in the palace, I'll confer upon you the title of noble lady. How does that sound? Gu Yunshin's words were completely different from what I remembered. Initially, Gu Yunshin wanted to make Song Li his empress, but her background was too humble, and the court officials opposed it. Left with no choice, Gu Yunshin had to appoint her as imperial consort instead. To console her, he solemnly promised to disband the harem. Vowing to have only her in this lifetime, I couldn't help but voice my confusion. Didn't Your Majesty say you would spend a lifetime with imperial consort just the two of you? As if hearing some joke, Gu Yunshin shook his head. Since ancient times, which emperor has had only one woman in his lifetime? I am the emperor, loving all under heaven. Having only her for these 4 years is already the utmost benevolence. She only knows how to wield spears and sticks, understands neither etiquette nor rules, excels not in poetry nor calligraphy, and constantly throws tantrums, clamoring to return to the northern deserts. I've truly had enough. Gu Yunshin reached out to me, seemingly intending to gently pat my head as in the past. Yan, I know that today, you and Wen-tan pretended to be intimate in front of me just to make me jealous and angry. If you can't bear to part with me, then why not stay by my side? I turned my head to avoid his touch, feeling an inexplicable chill run down my spine. Yet, at the end of their story, they were so deeply in love. How could someone who once loved so passionately become like this? Casual changes alter an old friend's heart, yet they say old friends' hearts are fickle. What kind of talk is this from the male lead? Does he really want to break up with the female lead? I thought during the day he was deliberately making the female lead jealous. Turns out he genuinely had ill intentions, folks. From the ending to the extra chapters, the male lead suddenly turning into this despicable character. I can't quite accept it. I frowned at Gu Yunshin, feeling an inexplicable surge of blood and heat rising within me, the intense warmth radiating from my body nearly making me lose my balance. Gu Yunshin quickly steadied me. Just as I was about to push him away, he firmly grasped my hand and asked, Are you feeling unwell now? Yan, it will get worse soon. You need me, he said. Remembering the chef's earlier complaint about the eunuch messing around in the kitchen, I suddenly looked up at him and demanded, "What did you have someone add to my food?" "Love's entanglement. I've had the palace maids test it. It won't cause any harm." I pushed him away with all my strength. "Gu Yunshin, have you lost your mind? This is the Prime Minister's residence, and I am the Prime Minister's wife." "I know, which makes it even more thrilling, doesn't it?" It felt as if a fire was burning inside me, scorching my organs unbearably. He reached out and embraced me. "I've grown tired of women like Songli, those dark-skinned and rough types. You were raised by noble families to be sent into the palace, a refined lady. And we share mutual affection. Wouldn't it be better for you to be with me? Are the male lead and the female supporting character really going to end up together? Sorry, I can't accept this. The male lead is so despicable." Male lead number 2, "Hurry up and save your wife." Female supporting character, "Don't agree." How could I possibly agree? The Gu Yunshin I once liked was a bright and pure young man, the righteous and compassionate male lead in the book. Not the kind of scoundrel who would behave like this now. Summoning all my strength, I raised my foot, aiming to kick him right in the family jewels. But someone moved faster than I did. I only heard the howling wind, a few bamboo leaves fluttering down, and frost and snow brushing against my face. The next moment, I was pulled into Wintan's embrace. Great, it's the second male lead. The supporting female character is saved. What a showdown, fight ye fight. Wintan set me aside and truly began to fight with Gu Yunshin. To be precise, it was Wintan's one-sided suppression. Perhaps due to the snake people's extraordinary talents, Gu Yunshin actually had little ability to fight back against Wintan. Bamboo leaves scattered wildly, creating a huge commotion, yet Gu Yunshin's guards were conspicuously absent. "How dare you administer such a potent drug to her?" "How dare I not? Don't you know just how much she adores me?" Gu Yunshin wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth with the back of his hand, trembling as he stood up. "You don't actually think that just because you married Wen Yen, she truly became your wife, do you? When I went to war in the northern deserts, she knelt in prayer to heaven and earth, waiting faithfully for me for 3 whole years. I deliberately made things difficult for her, knowing full well she had no skill in needlework, yet insisted she sew me a coat with her own hands. Her fingers were pricked full of holes, but she still stayed up all night to make it for me. I lied to her to make her give up, saying I would marry her if she could climb to the summit of the snow-capped mountain. Despite her extreme fear of the cold, she still went and nearly fell off the cliff, almost shattering into pieces. Wintan, would she do these things for you? It's been 2 years since your marriage, and you haven't even consummated it. So I drugged her and was willing to favor her. She should have been overjoyed. Wintan didn't speak. Only his grip tightened further. Gu Yunshin's face was swollen and red from his beating, and he was about to strike again. I couldn't bear it any longer and couldn't help but call out to him, "Wintan, come here," almost instantly. He returned to my side. "What's wrong?" "I can't hold on anymore. I want to go back to my room," I replied with difficulty. Wintan paid no further attention to Gu Yunshin. Instead, he hoisted me over his shoulder to take me back to the bedroom. "Don't go to the room." I weakly leaned on his shoulder. "Take me to the study." "Okay, my study is full of confidential political matters. It's not appropriate for you, but I really want to go. Just let me." "Okay." Wintan pressed his lips tightly, ultimately choosing silence and compliance, changing direction to take me to the study. "What are you going to do in the study?" "All those messy things belonging to the second male lead are kept there." Wouldn't it be mortifying if the female supporting character saw them? Pulling open the study door, my portrait was the first thing that caught my eye. Lip balms, undergarments, and such were neatly arranged by him beside the couch. He placed me on the couch, avoiding my gaze, his ears flushed crimson. "There's no antidote for the love potion. Rest here while I fetch ice from the cellar. The effects will last about 3 hours. Just endure it a little." I frowned and interrupted him. "Why endure? Isn't the antidote right here?" After hearing my words, Wintan's expression instantly darkened. He narrowed his eyes at me and said coldly, "What? Are you suggesting I drag Gu Yunshin over here? The second male lead's darkening value seems to be on the verge of skyrocketing. If he's forced to personally deliver the male lead to the female antagonist's bed, I think he'd lose his mind and then destroy everyone in his path. I leaned forward and grasped his hand. But the person I'm talking about is you. The hostility in Wintan dissipated in an instant, vanishing without a trace. The snake's body was so cold, yet the fire within me still burned. I only wanted to press tightly against him, drawing in the coolness from his body. That's what I thought, and that's what I did. I pulled his body lower, burying my head in the crook of his neck, wrapping my arms around his waist. He seemed as if struck by a paralysis point, completely unable to move. I had no choice but to help him undo his belt, strip off his outer robe, and tear away his inner garments. Originally, he was in human form, but for some unknown reason, his lower body transformed into a white serpent's tail. Its scales cool yet smooth to the touch. The male lead setting is quite intriguing. When subjected to unbearable stimulation, he reverts to his serpent tail. I've got my little stool ready, the lights are off, and I'm snug in bed. Please hurry up. I want to see what happens next. I stroked his serpent tail, only to see him turn his blushing face away. Wen-yen, let me get you some ice. Why? I suppressed the heat rising within me, clinging to his neck as I whispered the question. You said it yourself. I'm not normal, I'm disgusting. He lowered his head, gripping the bedding tightly, his knuckles turning white. And you saw it yesterday too. His voice grew quieter and quieter. I couldn't bear to take it slow with him any longer. So I leaned in and kissed his lips. His Adam's apple bobbed twice. His breathing gradually grew heavier. His white scales once again took on a honeyed hue, and his serpent tail swayed restlessly from side to side. Yen, don't be like this. He reminded me in the suffocating grip of reluctance. You've imagined this in the study so many times, and now I'm right here before you. Are you really going to be so coy? And I leaned in gently, kissing his scales. Those words were just to provoke you, merely spoken, never truly meant. Yesterday, I wasn't rejecting you either. It was just my first time seeing a snake's anatomy, and I was a bit shocked. I buried my face in his serpent tail, gave it a gentle kiss, then lifted my chin to gaze up at him with longing eyes. Suddenly, the serpent tail coiled around me, its grip so tight it nearly took my breath away. Ah, the female supporting character really knows how to use her mouth. The second male lead is so skilled, coiling around the female lead and pinning her against the portrait wall for a kiss. Why did the screen suddenly go black? What about the rest? Where's the main content? We've already paid. How can they treat us like this? Is there anything our esteemed SALT selection members aren't allowed to watch? The commotion in the study was so loud that 16 portraits fell off the walls. The sky outside the window gradually brightened. The 3 hours had finally passed. Blushing furiously, I leaned against Wintan's chest, pulling the quilt up to cover myself. The scene finally appeared. Wait, no, it's already dawn. Damn girl, you're really living the good life. Please, let me act in a couple of episodes too. The food is great, but the exhaustion is real. I only had time to glance at Wintan's darkening value before falling into a deep sleep. Great, the darkening value is down to just 50 when I woke up. The study had already changed its appearance. All those unsightly things had been completely put away. If not for the brand still on my body, I would have almost thought that what happened last night was just my hallucination, enduring the pain. I changed my clothes and went to the front courtyard to inquire about Gu Yunshin's condition. How strange it was. Gu Yunshin, the emperor, had been beaten by Wintan, yet he acted as if nothing had happened and returned to the palace with Consort Chen. Meanwhile, Wintan remained nowhere to be seen. Despite living under the same roof, I didn't catch a glimpse of him for 3 consecutive days. He excused himself by claiming political duties kept him too busy. He neither came home for meals nor slept at home. As the New Year festival approached, I was busy delivering supplies to the Jishur Hall for women and children, and for a while, I couldn't spare any attention for him. It wasn't until 3 days later, when Consort Chen hosted a banquet in the palace and invited our couple to attend, that I finally saw him again. He nodded politely and courteously in my direction. but instead of riding in the carriage with me, he went straight to the palace gates on horseback. What's the second male lead up to? Why do I feel like he's deliberately avoiding the supporting female character? His eyes kept darting away, looking very guilty, throughout the banquet. I couldn't find a chance to be alone with Wintan. The meal was utterly dull, and near the end, I saw Songli give him a meaningful glance. Wintan excused himself from the table, and Songli also left the gathering. I wanted to catch up, but the palace maid by Songli's side stopped me, pulling me aside to chatter about this and that, clearly unwilling to let me leave. Could it be that after the female lead had a falling out with the male lead, she turned around and threw herself into the arms of the devoted second male lead? Is the second male lead really going to follow her so easily, like a fresh and tender vegetable? I told you before, the female lead is the second male lead's white moonlight. Once the white moonlight appears, everyone else loses. I quietly watched the barrage of comments while taking small sips of tea with my head lowered. After the time it takes to drink half a cup of tea, the two finally returned one after the other, for some reason, at first glance. These two actually seemed somewhat well matched. On the way back, Wintan, contrary to his usual behavior, lifted the sedan curtain and sat opposite me. He didn't speak first, so I remained silent as well. For some reason, the journey home today felt unusually long, and the carriage didn't stop for quite a while. Unable to resist, I lifted the curtain to look outside, only to realize the carriage had already left the city and was now winding up a mountain path. Where are we going? I asked Wintan. Today is the Lantern Festival. I want to take you somewhere. The carriage stopped in the valley, and Wintan helped me alight. The mountain air was chilly, so he took off his cloak and draped it over me. Snow-covered pines were adorned with lanterns. Though deep in the mountains, the place was festooned with lights and decorations, all hung with rabbit-shaped lanterns. The designs of these rabbit lanterns are quite lovely, though the craftsmanship is a bit rough. I glanced at Wintan's hands and noticed they were covered with numerous fine, dense cuts. Did you make all these by hand? Wintan nodded. I know you like rabbits, so I made some rabbit lanterns, but they might be a bit ugly. So he disappeared for a few days just to make a rabbit lantern for the female supporting character. He really did that. I'm so moved I could cry. But what's going on with him and the female lead? Why are they meeting secretly, under the frost-like full moon? Wintan took me for a stroll through the valley. Just thinking about him and Songli, I felt a bit unsettled in my heart, constantly pondering how to broach the subject, and couldn't help but be somewhat distracted. Perhaps noticing my frequent absent-mindedness, Wintan also stopped talking and quietly led me deeper into the cave. The further we went, the fewer the lights became, and the colder and gloomier it grew. Yen, he called my name. I snapped back to reality, only to realize that at some point, he had transformed his lower body into a serpent's tail again. The scales were rapidly growing upward at a visible pace, and he had completely taken on the form of a snake. A sudden chill touched my hand as he placed a knife into my palm. Yen, I'll be shedding my skin tonight. Shedding its skin is when a snake is most vulnerable. If you kill me now, I won't be able to resist at all. Whether to kill me or not is your decision. I looked at the knife in my hand, feeling utterly baffled. Why would I want to kill you? I know that night, you were under the influence of the love silk potion. And it was only when you were not in your right mind that we consummated our marriage. I took advantage of your vulnerability. That's why I haven't dared to see you these past few days. I didn't know how you would react once you were sober, and I couldn't face it. There was a pool in the cave, and he coiled beside it. I originally thought, if you wanted to go back to the beginning, I would let you, but seeing you today, I knew I would want more. Once you've tasted the marrow, you can't help but crave more. It's terrifyingly addictive. As he spoke, the giant serpent slowly slithered toward me, coiling around my ankle, its crimson forked tongue flickering as it licked my skin inch by inch. Yen, you should know the nature of snakes. Holding back for 4 years was already difficult. If I survive, every night from now on, I'll drag you back to relive that night's events. The cave was cold, yet his words inexplicably set my cheeks ablaze. I let him entwine around me and finally asked the question I'd been holding in all night. You and Song Li left one after the other. What exactly did you talk about? The supporting female character finally asked. I've been waiting all night, it was killing me. If he dares to like two people at the same time, listen to me, my dear supporting female lead, just cut him off directly. Wen Tan didn't answer me. Instead, he asked, do you know why I injured Gu Yunshin that day? Yet he didn't get angry with me, because you hold significant power, but even so, that alone wouldn't be enough to make Gu Yunshin wary. At the time, he was poisoned by snake venom. And I was the one who cured him. After that, he needed to take the antidote I provided every month for 5 years to completely eliminate the toxins from his body. It's almost been 5 years now. Over these years, he's changed a lot. Become more domineering and overbearing. What do you think he'll do once the 5-year period is up? After a moment's hesitation, I reached out and stroked the python's head. He will kill you, Yen Yen. The only death I can accept is by your hand. I could never bear the thought of being used and discarded by Gu Yunshin. Song Li can't stand the current Gu Yunshin either. She said her past self was like a puppet on strings, manipulated into her current position. Her dream was to protect the nation. And for years she's wanted to return to the frontier, but Gu Yunshin has bound her, tamed her, forcing her to become a refined lady of noble birth. Gu Yunshin is incompetent and negligent in governance. Song Li urged me to rebel. To select a young child from the imperial clan to support. When the time comes, she would coordinate with me from within. That's what we discussed today. The python coiled around my waist, entwined my hands, and wrapped me tighter and tighter. Wen Yen, today is your only chance to kill me. If I survive, not only will I haunt you, but I'll also kill Gu Yunshin. I nuzzled against his scales, but I don't like Gu Yunshin anymore, so you can rest easy and do what you must. Also, Wen Tan. Do you like me? He stopped his movement, his narrowed eyes slowly widening, becoming round and black. What are you standing there for? Have you lost your tongue? Damn it, say you love her already. But even without an answer, I knew the meaning behind his actions. The giant python suddenly began the arduous process of shedding its skin, revealing its most vulnerable side to me without reservation. I sat cross-legged in the cave, quietly watching him shed his skin bit by bit. My mind swirling with thoughts. If Wen Tan truly loved me, then he could be considered a rather excellent partner and ally. So, I gently pressed my face against his serpentine belly. No answer. Then I'll speak first. Wen Tan, do I need to try harder to show my flaws for you to realize I like you? The python before me froze for a long time at my words. Seizing the moment, I threw the dagger in my hand into the pool and hugged him tightly. The effect of that night's love potion wasn't enough to make me lose my mind. I was willing to be with you. He didn't speak, only quickened the pace of his shedding. I thought a snake would be very weak after shedding its skin, but I never expected it to be so vigorous after molting, even in a cave. No wonder the second male lead is a snake. He really loves these damp, cold places. Why is the screen still black? How long until the normal display returns? At noon the next day. I slowly woke up in Wen Tan's arms. I wrapped my arms around his neck and coquettishly said, "Husband, I really like you." His ears turned red to the point of burning, and he narrowed his eyes, gripping my wrist as he flipped me over and pinned me down. Then, shall we continue? Isn't the snake's ability a bit too overpowered? I cleared my throat lightly and coaxingly asked, Wen Tan, since I like you so much, what about you? Do you trust me? He winked at me and nodded emphatically. I held his hand, lowered my voice, and added a hint of temptation to my tone. Then, do you dare to entrust your life to me? He agreed without hesitation. Life entrusting literature, better late than never. I always feel like the female supporting character has some ulterior motives towards the second male lead. What exactly is the female supporting character trying to do? I stroked the cold snake tail, my gaze falling upon the stagnant pool of water. A few days later, I entered the palace to pay a visit to Gu Yunshin. I knew you would come to me. I smiled faintly at him. Didn't your majesty previously wish for me to enter the palace? Then may your majesty grant me a new identity, so I may enter the palace. Gu Yunshin sat on the dragon throne, arms crossed as he raised an eyebrow. studying me for a moment before suddenly laughing. Didn't you refuse that night? Why are you so eager to beg me now? I wore the lotus blue high-waisted ruchuan he loved most, smiling at him. Your Majesty abandoned me once for consort Chin. That night I deliberately angered you. Now we're even. Gu Yunshin smiled knowingly, resting his chin on his hand as he gazed at me. I knew you couldn't let go of me in your heart, indeed. So, what identity does your Majesty plan to fabricate for my entry into the palace? I asked him. No, what the hell is the female lead doing? Didn't she just confess to the second male lead? Now she's going after the male lead. That's so trashy. I ignored the barrage of comments, looking at the pensive Gu Yunshin and softly reminded him, Your Majesty, do you remember why the Empress Dowager brought me into the palace back then? Because you resemble my sister Xiaoru. Xiaoru was unlucky. She got lost in the hunting grounds at the age of 3 and was never found. Then if I borrow Princess Xiaoru's identity, wouldn't I have a legitimate reason to enter the palace? Gu Yunshin slightly frowned. Couldn't you just make up a simple identity? Why go through all this trouble? However, his gaze fell upon me, gradually deepening. If by day you act as my sister, and by night share my bed, that would be quite interesting. Allow me to consider it, Your Majesty. Take your time to consider it. I said no more and returned to the Prime Minister's residence to await his response. In the following days, Wen Tan and I were inseparable, strolling through the streets hand in hand, and news of our marital bliss soon reached the palace. Meanwhile, Gu Yunshin and Song Li clashed once again over the expansion of the imperial harem, reportedly smashing several vases in the process. That very night, I received Gu Yunshin's secret letter. He said everything would proceed as I wished, and
I told you, the second male lead and the supporting female character are definitely working together. His hand brushed across my cheek. The thought of you by his side drives me mad with jealousy. When Tan's eyes burned with possessiveness, threatening to consume me whole, the more he spoke, the hoarser his voice grew. Until he pinned me down on the bed, pressing methodical kisses upon me. A massive serpent's tail coiled around me, lifting me high, only releasing me when my pleas for mercy became unbearable. I grabbed him by the collar. Let's get to the point first. How many more days can Gu Yunshin live, my empress? At most 7 days. What empress? What is he talking about? Please explain. That day in the cave, lying in Wentan's arms, I asked him if he dared to entrust his life to me, rather than supporting a clan relative to ascend the throne. Why not take a gamble and let me be the emperor? Back when I entered the palace to accompany the Empress Dowager, she repeatedly told me about Princess Xiaoru's story. When the princess went missing, the longevity lock wasn't with her, the Dowager Empress. Seeing the object and thinking of the person, found it truly unbearable, so she gave the longevity lock to me. She repeatedly told me stories about Xiaoru's childhood, so I came to know Xiaoru inside out, since I bear such a striking resemblance to Xiaoru. Why can't I be Xiaoru? Song Li's body was injured on the battlefield, making it difficult for her to conceive, and all these years she has never borne a child for Gu Yunshin. If Gu Yunshin were gone, as Xiaoru, I would have the chance to inherit the throne. I grew up with Gu Yunshin. He studied statecraft and read the classics of history and philosophy, and I did not fall behind in any of these. Why can't I become an empress? That day, I gently stroked Wen Tan's cheek and softly told him my plan. Will you help me, please? Wen Tan hugged me back and said, Yes, I don't know if you'll discard me like Gu Yunshin once you're done with me, but even if you're just using me, I'd still be willing. He answered me while showering me with tender kisses. Wen Tan spoke well. Gu Yunshin was poisoned overnight, the venom reaching his lungs, leaving him barely clinging to life and unable to utter a single word. Song Li attended to his illness and, to avoid affecting Gu Yunshin's condition, she did not allow others to visit. Gu Yunshin suddenly passed away at midnight, without even leaving a final edict. The ministers feigned sorrow over Gu Yunshin's untimely death before promptly turning to discuss the selection of the new emperor. The elder statesman proposed choosing a male heir from the imperial clan, while Wen Tan firmly advocated for Princess Xiaoru. After a prolonged stalemate, Wen Tan's formidable influence tipped the scales in his favor. 3 days later, Gu Yunshin was laid to rest in the imperial mausoleum. While I donned the imperial robes and rightfully ascended the throne as the reigning empress, on the day I became the empress, Song Li came to see me. She said she didn't want to be any imperial consort dowager. The only request she made for helping me ascend the throne was to let her return to the northern desert. In my memory, Songli and I had been incompatible and irreconcilable from the very beginning, never having such a peaceful heart-to-heart talk before. This time, she smiled at me and said, "Actually, I can hardly understand my former self. I always felt like something was pushing the old me forward, making me meet Gu Yunshin, fall in love with Gu Yunshin, and abandon the northern deserts for Gu Yunshin. I consider myself a rational person. I trained in martial arts for years just to protect my homeland. I don't know how I ended up like this. Clearly, my heart resisted all along, yet as if destined by fate, I followed Gu Yunshin step by step. Even entering the palace as his consort, after becoming the imperial consort Shin, that force pushing me forward suddenly vanished, and Gu Yunshin changed abruptly too. At first, there was still the old love to sustain us, but later, as love teetered on the brink of collapse, I longed only to return to the northern deserts. While he thought only of indulgence, she smiled self-deprecatingly. Perhaps I'm just this contradictory person. That so-called force pushing me forward was just an excuse I made for myself. But I knew that wasn't an excuse. It was the existence of the plot that forced her against her will onto that predetermined path. Just like how, bearing the identity of the villainess, I had once done things that wronged her. The author shaped our personalities, crafted our stories, and set us on course for our destined endings, yet we grew in the cracks, developing personalities, gaining flesh and blood, and forming our own thoughts. So, the end of the story is not the end of our lives. Not all male leads are upright and kind. Not all female leads need a man in the end. And the relationship between the female lead and the supporting female character can also be harmonious and joyful. And as a supporting female character in the story, she can break free from constraints and strive to become the protagonist in her own story. She will defend her homeland and gallop across the battlefield. That evening, when Tan lingered in my Qianqing palace, refusing to leave, with practiced ease, he pulled me into his embrace, his eyes smiling. "How would your majesty like this servant to attend to you?" I gently lifted his chin with my finger. "When Tan, give up being the prime minister and peacefully become my imperial consort. All right. My harem will have only you." The conflict between imperial power and ministerial authority has been fraught with tension since ancient times. I don't want to reach a life or death standoff with Wen Tan. Someone must make a concession, and that someone won't be me. Wen Tan pressed his forehead against mine. "You know, ever since I fell in love with you 7 years ago, my life has been in your hands. Do with me as you will, as long as you love me. I can't refuse any of your requests." The pearly white snake tail glowed with a honeyed hue, entwining tightly with me. A love-struck mind is the best dowry a man can offer. Still, a male supporting character who doesn't turn dark is the best. The side story ends here. Will there be more? Though the tale on paper has concluded, this is not the final chapter of my life. With the bright spring moon and the autumn winds sigh, henceforth, I and my life shall together steer these seasons. The end.